Dave Filoni is back with Ahsoka. After years away from the character other than a few cameos in Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, Ahsoka is back in full action, and I think that last episode of Ahsoka is going to change Star Wars forever. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. Anakin's Padawan after the death of both Anakin and Darth Vader is something that I think is really fascinating, and it opens up a new time frame that we haven't seen in Star Wars before. While technically the season takes place at the same time as Mando Season 3, it's tackling a different part of the galaxy, and definitely a different flavor of things. While Mando Season 3 tackled the fun romp across the galaxy, side quest after side quest, Ahsoka is not doing that at all. It's very focused on one story. And that story is how Ahsoka is learning to both train Sabine as well as overcome her inhibitions, her fears as being trained by Anakin, who became Darth Vader. And that was a big part of episode 5 of Ahsoka. With only 3 episodes to go, it was a big reveal. And it's setting up Ahsoka as kind of like what we talked about on the live stream, which we do every Tuesday after the show comes out. This is Ahsoka's Gandalf the White moment. The realization, the overcoming of past fears, and becoming something more, something better. At least that's what we're expecting. And if you watched Rebels, you may be like, haven't we seen this before? Yes, we have seen this before, but this is a semi-retcon that Dave Filoni is very well known for. Like George Lucas and his reshoots, Dave Filoni likes to go back and change some of the history around Ahsoka. Rather than starting off Ahsoka as the Gandalf the White version of herself with the staff and everything, we're seeing the transition to that Ahsoka. And I think it's much better for it. This story is something that is very special to Dave Filoni, and it's a different style than we've seen before in other Star Wars projects so far. It's like a quarter Mando, half Rebels, and a sprinkling of Andor. Like, that's kind of the vibe that we're getting at with this season and with this show entirely. But it is an odd choice because in the marketing materials and what we know for the whole of the Mandoverse, Thrawn is the big bad. But I highly doubt Thrawn will be the big bad for this season. Ever since Mando Season 3, we have known about Thrawn in more legitimate ways. Technically Mando Season 2, but Mando Season 3 was like, okay, this is the Empire side of things. And he's still around, still pulling the strings. If you expect Thrawn to be the ultimate person as part of this season, I think you're going to be very disappointed. Thrawn is not the focus of this. The focus is around setting up Ahsoka as a worthy opponent to Thrawn. We know that Dave Filoni's ultimate movie will tie to the end of the Mandoverse and probably lean more towards the creation of the First Order and the New Republic as we know it in the sequel movies. And to have Thrawn as the big bad for this season, well, technically it's true. It's not the focus. I'd say the focus of the whole Mandoverse, Thrawn is the bad dude. He is the big bad, the person pulling the strings, the heir to the Empire. But this is the precursor to that war. This is the precursor to all of the things that Thrawn will put into motion. Thrawn's goal in Legends was to fuel the rise of the Chiss, the Chiss ascendancy, and to continue gathering power through his actions for the Chiss ascendancy. And even in canon, that is the case. We see in the Thrawn trilogy of books, both trilogy of books actually, the rise and protection and continuing power gathering for the Chiss ascendancy is there. But that was a different timeline. We are now past the original trilogy and we are before the sequel. So what is Thrawn's focus in this new era? And where does Ahsoka come into all of this? Ahsoka's main goal as we know it so far is to 1. Train Sabine, 2. Stop Thrawn, and 3, if possible, maybe if they have time to pick him up in the downtime, save Ezra. Those are kind of the order of things that she is most interested in. It is training, protecting her galaxy, and as much as she can, stopping the war from happening, stopping the turmoil that's rising in the New Republic, as well as the less than savorable actions of the New Republic and stopping the warlords from rising and taking over the Empire once more. So when we look at episode 5 of Ahsoka, we're getting all of the pieces put into place of what will ultimately spark this whole era. All future seasons of The Mandalorian, all future seasons of Ahsoka, all of the spin-offs, the movies, everything is going to tie around these actions in this show. Dave Filoni's movie is going to be based around the actions that Ahsoka and Thrawn and Sabine and Ezra make in this show, but we will not see any resolution from those actions in this show. It's the spark that is going to take everything that we will eventually see to fruition, which I think is really exciting. Something along these lines is huge, and if you look at something like Skeleton Crew, that will take place around the same time as this episode, as this show, this series, this season, whatever you want to call it. That's what Ahsoka is all about. It's about setting up the future of Star Wars entirely. While we will of course see Thrawn in this season, I don't think he's going to play as big of a role as we might have hoped or expected. He's going to be there, he's going to be pulling the strings, and he is going to, at some point, more than likely jump from where he has been to the Star Wars galaxy that we know. Probably in the last episode, but he is not going to be the main villain. The main villain is Ahsoka's belief in herself, Balin's disbelief and failing in the galaxy, and his perspective around Star Wars, the Jedi, everything that he once stood for, he has now separated himself from. While he still feels the sadness and the respect for the Jedi that he did once have, he now has a different goal. His goal is something entirely to himself. While it is helping to reach Thrawn, it's something bigger, something that we don't know yet, and I assume we'll find out pretty soon. And I think we're going to see Ahsoka whip out some new moves opened up to her through this new realization of herself and her powers and her perspective on what her master Anakin was doing. Those flashbacks are going to be a key part of what we see in Ahsoka. While a lot of it was great, it was like, oh my gosh, look, the Clone Wars, it's real, oh my gosh. It was to fuel Ahsoka's path and her perspective and her skills in the Force. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on what you think about this theory and breakdown of the episode, and let me know what your overall expectations are for the season going forward. Do you think that we're going to see Thrawn in a much bigger role? Do you think that he's going to be saved to the last possible second? I think it's an interesting question because we haven't seen a whole lot from Thrawn yet. We've only seen rumblings and bits and pieces. I think we're going to see him later than we expect and not as long as we would have hoped for. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, check out our podcast and may the Force be with you.